Venezuela secures over 11 million vaccines through the COVAX initiative. St. Vincent and the Grenadines receives 20 tons of humanitarian aid from Venezuela. And Serbians rally to demand better protection of the environment. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has announced that the government paid around $64 million to gain access to over 11,374,000 vaccines through the COVAX initiative. This is about 50% of the vaccines allocated for Venezuela through the initiative and will allow the vaccination of about 20% of Venezuela's population.
Venezuela have managed to secure funds for about 50% of vaccine allocated to us through the COVAX initiative, thanks to international, diplomatic, and legal negotiations. As you might know, the COVAX initiative needs some advance payment, and the Venezuelan government has now secured the double of the minimum necessary prepayment. We have deposited around 59.2 million Swiss francs to the designated COVAX account. This means that the COVAX initiative has received an equivalent of $64 million in order to secure the vaccination of the Venezuelan people. The other $60 million requested by the COVAX initiative are guaranteed as well, and when it is required, our government will transfer this amount as well.
Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has confirmed that Caracas will also produce the Cuban COVID-19 vaccine Abdala. The state-owned pharmaceutical company Spromed Bio will produce the Cuban jab that Venezuela plans to use in its vaccination campaign as well. Abdala is in the final stage of phase 3 clinical trials and has so far proven to be safe and effective. On Thursday, the Vice President and Cuban Ambassador to Venezuela, Dagoberto Gomez, visited the lab to verify the required conditions for the production of the vaccine. According to Cuba's Health Minister, José Ángel Portal, his country's two vaccine candidates currently in phase 3 trials, Abdala and Soberana 02, are safe, create a positive immune response, and side effects are rare and usually mild. La Soufrière volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines erupted twice on Friday, sending thousands of panicked locals fleeing to safety. This is the first time the volcano erupted since 1979. The initial blast from La Soufrière sent plumes of hot ash and smoke 6,000 meters into the air Friday morning, while a second, smaller eruption in the afternoon bleached out a 4,000 meter high ash cloud. Prime Minister Raul Gonzalez have already declared a disaster alert on Thursday when seismic activity suggested that the volcano will erupt soon. The island of St. Vincent was later placed on red alert, which is the highest threat level. Thousands of people were evacuated from the affected areas, and according to the University of West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago, the volcano is now likely to keep erupting for days or weeks. The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Raul Gonzalez, has said that the researchers are currently analyzing samples of the volcanic ash to determine how long the La Soufrière is likely to keep erupting. As the Prime Minister revised the emergency situation on the ground, he also said it will take an enormous amount of work to clean up all the ash, which could become unsafe if rains fall on it.
Of the 13 million cubic meters of material which had formed the dome, approximately the volume, which has been blown away, and new material is also coming up from in the volcano. And fortunately, a lot of the material has gone to the sea, but a lot is here, and a lot. I was just talking to Mia Mapley, the PM of Barbados, and a lot has reached Barbados. And we don't know how long this spewing is going to take place. The seismologists don't know, in fact, what the work they're doing. They're collecting samples, and through their testing, they're going to be able to give us some indication as to what do they think. Of course, it's not a precise science when you're doing these prognoses. So this cleaning up is going to be massive, as you can see already. This is not. Remember this? The weight of this and the nature of this. Mashing up houses already, you know. Crashing the roofs, crashing the windows and doors.
The government of Venezuela has sent 20 tons of humanitarian aid to St. Vincent and the Grenadines following the eruption of La Soufrière volcano. Sent in a military ship, the ship included food, water, among other emergency supplies. A team of 15 Venezuelan risk experts were also sent to aid the Caribbean nation in search and rescue efforts. The team will also help with hospital work, logistics, and communications as St. Vincent braces itself for further eruptions and tremors.
From the moment news about the eruption of the volcano reached us, our President and Commander-in-Chief Nicolás Maduro has offered Venezuela's unconditional support for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We began with deploying the Simón Bolívar Humanitarian Task Force for the aid mission. Our President has immediately offered all the support needed for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
In Colombia, Bogotá's Mayor Claudia López has ordered a strict lockdown in the capital as it battles a third wave of the pandemic. 8 million inhabitants of Bogotá have been put under strict lockdown for the weekend, with only essential activities being permitted. The measures are in addition to night curfews imposed by the government that covers 7 million people in the cities of Medellín, Cali, Barranquilla, and Santa Marta, where the health system is overwhelmed by the virus. However, infections and deaths have continued to rise, and there is concern about the effect of the recent Easter holidays. Colombia has so far administered at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine to 2.4 million of its 50 million inhabitants.
For us medical staff, a strict lockdown is very helpful because it reduces patient overcrowding and helps us all to take care of each other.
I don't do anything locked up at home. What happens is that I feel sick with anxiety because I can't afford to pay the rent, utilities, and food. I have no other to provide for me. The government keeps saying that they are helping, but I've never received any help at all.
Ecuador has received its second batch of the Chinese Sinovac vaccines. A shipment of 700,000 doses landed at the Mariscal Sucre International Airport here in the capital, Quito. With this batch of Sinovac jabs, Ecuador has received around 1.5 million doses of the three vaccines, Pfizer, Sinovac, and AstraZeneca. The latter came through the COVAX initiative. The country continues with the first stage of its vaccination plan, in which vulnerable groups are prioritized. Ecuador has recorded about 279,000 infections and more than 10,800 deaths since the beginning of the pandemic. And also, Ecuador is wrapping up the distribution of electoral material a day before the presidential runoff vote. Workers of Ecuador's National Electoral Council distribute ballot papers, voting boxes, and devices to scan and quickly register votes at polling stations here in the capital, Quito. According to electoral authorities, the distribution of voting materials across the country will be completed by the end of Saturday. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. To the polls on Sunday to choose a new president and Congress, many continue to express doubts about the process and who to vote for. A total of 18 presidential candidates are running in the vote, with no clear favorite, and polls indicating the possibility of high levels of blank ballots.
As a citizen, I certainly feel very unprotected because there is no accurate information about this election, which should be provided by the health and electoral authorities. The thing is that people will be in somewhat difficult situation as they vote, where maybe they didn't have time to evaluate the candidates who are in this general election. So I think that this will somehow shape the election because it will be a bit confusing.
The tensions of undocumented asylum seekers on the U.S. border with Mexico soared in March to over 172,000, the highest number in 15 years, as the United States continues to deport people trying to enter its territory, despite promises by the Biden administration to end the harsh immigration policies of former President Donald Trump.
They kicked us out as if, I don't want to say the word, but they kicked us out as it was nothing. They didn't test us in the United States for COVID-19. They didn't test us.
We don't have a safe distance between them. Many don't have face masks. Often, children are malnourished. These are the circumstances of where they have been in these times.
Authorities in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro have announced a partial easing of the COVID-19 restrictions, claiming that conditions had improved despite a growing numbers of deaths. The measure was issued with immediate effect, allowing restaurants, shops, bars, and beaches to reopen with reduced opening hours and strict sanitary protocols, such as the mandatory use of face masks. Rio's mayor, Eduardo Paes, said restrictions could be reimposed if infection rates increase again. In Chile, a tourism boom in the seaside resort of Valparaiso during the austral summer had led to an explosive increase in coronavirus infections.
We believe that this increase is directly related to several factors, but one of them is the holiday permit, which allowed a significant number of people to travel to districts in our region in a festive spirit of rest, relaxation, and disconnection after a very bad year. The atmosphere is palpable in hospitals that are collapsed, that are in total COVID mode. That means patients have to wait 4, 6, or 8 hours for medical attention in emergency rooms.
Chadian President Idris Deby Itno closed his election campaign on Friday as the country prepares to head to the polls on Sunday when he is running for a 6th term in office. Deby is widely expected to win in the first round, in part because of 2 of the leading opposition candidates withdrew from the race as part of a boycott, while a third man, considered a top contender, chose not to run. The only remaining opposition candidate that has had the sources to campaign outside the capital of the country is Albert Pahimi Padake, a one-time ally of the president who served as prime minister from 2016 to 2018. Deby, a former army commander-in-chief, first came to power in 1990 when his rebel forces overthrew the then president Hissène Habré, who was later convicted of human rights abuses at an international court. Presidential elections were held in the small African nation of Djibouti this Friday, where President Ismail Omar Guelleh is expected to secure a 5th term in office. Some 215,000 citizens were registered to vote, with polling stations opening early across the nation, which overlooks one of the world's busiest trade routes between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Election observers say that the process ran smoothly. Counting started shortly after polling stations closed around 7 p.m. If no candidate receives a majority of the vote, a second round will be held on April 23rd. President Ismail Omar Guelleh has ruled the country for the past 22 years.
The election has taken place in good conditions. Thank God it has been peaceful, and above all, thank God the people came out to participate. Now we will wait for the results. I have fulfilled my responsibility.
The Tunisian president has visited Egypt's capital, Cairo, to meet his counterpart, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, for talks on the Libyan conflict. Following the meeting, President el-Sisi said Egypt and Tunisia are going to provide all the support necessary for Libya to hold general elections in December. The two leaders also discussed about the massive dam that Ethiopia is building on the Nile River's main tributary. The Tunisian president has promised to back Egypt's position on the dam construction dispute.
We also discussed, me and my brother, Kais Saed, the developments of the Libyan crisis, and we confirmed that an Arab role must be activated towards this crisis. And we welcome what was recently reached, forming the executive authority in Libya. And we also confirmed that we ensure to provide all kinds of support to enable them their role during the transitional period to hold the election in December this year.
كونه جزءا من الأمن القومي العربي
Iran has started its advanced uranium enrichment centrifuges as the country marks its National Nuclear Technology Day. President Hassan Rouhani inaugurated this technological project at the Uranium Enrichment Plant in a ceremony. The move follows an opening round of talks in Vienna Tuesday with representatives of the remaining parties of the nuclear deal on bringing the United States back into it. All sides say the talks, in which Washington is not participating directly but has the European Union as intermediary, has got off to a good start. Iran has demanded that the United States first lift all sanctions imposed by Trump, which included a unilateral ban on its oil exports, before it falls back in line with obligations it suspended.
I ask you, Mr. President, to simultaneously authorize the mass production and gas supply of the complete chain of 164 IR6 centrifuge machines of 10 SWU separation work until each of the gas supply of the first phase of 30 machines of the Chahed chain of IR5 centrifuge, as well as the gas supply of the first phase of 30 machines of the Kahed chain of IR6S centrifuges.
Still in Iran, the government has enforced a 10-day lockdown as a fourth wave of the coronavirus is spreading across the country. Authorities ordered the closure of all parks, restaurants, beauty salons, malls, and bookstores in 257 cities. Over 85% of the country is in a designated red or orange zone with the toughest restrictions in place. The country is grappling with a spike following the Persian New Year, the nation's biggest holiday, which drove millions to travel to the Caspian coast and other popular vacation spots, packed markets, and congregating homes for parties in defiance of the government health guidelines. Iranian officials say the deadly death toll from COVID-19 rose by 155, putting the country's total at over 64,000 as on Friday. More news after one last break. Stay with us. In the United States, at least one person has died and 7 got injured in the state of Louisiana after severe storms ripped across the region. Large hail damaged cars in Texas and Alabama. Roads were flooded in Mississippi, and a tornado left behind piles of debris in Panhandle, Florida, where also several other homes were damaged, with most of the destruction being done in the rural community of Palmetto. Heavy rains and flash floods are also expected, and according to forecasters, the storm threat is expected to decrease by late Saturday. At least 7 people have been killed after an earthquake hit Indonesia's Java Island. The 6.0 magnitude quake struck offshore about 45 kilometers southwest of Malak City in East Java, damaging hundreds of homes, schools, and government offices. Residents of surrounding communities have been evacuated to safety. Indonesia has been experiencing frequent quakes and volcanic eruptions due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of intense seismic activity. In 2004, Indonesia experienced one of its deadliest earthquakes off the coast of Sumatra, leaving 220,000 deaths through the region.
We were very shocked. The whole house was shaking. I was sitting and it felt like I was thrown up from the chair. I was running away, but then I remembered my elder relative, so I got back and dragged her out of the house in anticipation of aftershocks.
One of India's largest cities, Mumbai, has gone into a new lockdown as the country faces a surge in COVID-19 cases and shortages of vaccines, drugs, and hospital beds. Restaurants have been ordered to close and public gatherings were banned in Maharashtra state and its capital Mumbai to slow the spread of COVID-19. India has been experiencing a new wave of coronavirus infections and has recorded 1 million new cases in the past week. As a result, the country has also suspended exporting vaccines to give priority for its own population.
There should be both, lockdown, as well as people being able to run their businesses. The rickshaw drivers are in a really bad shape as there is no business. They have no option but to sit at the street corners, chatting with each other. What else can they do? We have to at least be able to earn a little to meet our daily expenses. The lockdown should be implemented in such a way that the common man is not affected economically. People have children and families. They should be able to at least feed them.
Hundreds of protesters in Australia have marched through Sydney as part of a national day of action calling for an end to Indigenous citizens' deaths in custody. Relatives of Indigenous Australians who have died in custody spoke at the rally, including Kaya Paten, whose uncle Eddie Murray was found hanging in a cell 40 years ago, and Nikoa Chatfield, whose son died in a hospital after he was found unconscious in a cell in a correctional facility in 2017. The protests come ahead of the 30th anniversary of a report by the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody, handed down a report, few of whose recommendations have been since instituted.
It's an action day today. We've had enough conversation with these dug-eyes. Time for action now. Time to go walkabout, time to start educating our kids, time to start rising up, starting to take our land back, taking authority back, taking our communities back, taking our kids back, bringing them home, making sure that they're safe.
Today is 30 years into the Royal Commission and they still have not got their justice. This year marks 40 years since my uncle and his life has been taken from him, and we still have not seen our justice. So we will continue to get up here and tell our story over and over and over again until you get sick of us, because you know what? We're not going nowhere!
Thousands of protesters in Serbia have rallied in the capital Belgrade to demand better protection of the environment. Thousands of people gathered outside the Serbian parliament building for the so-called ecological uprising against what organizers say is a widespread environmental devastation. Protesters carry banners reading "Cut corruption and crime, not forests," or "Water is life and plant a tree," referring to shrinking green areas in the cities, particularly in Belgrade, where huge concrete residential areas have expanded in recent years. Serbia, which aspires to join the European Union, has faced several problems that include poor garbage management and high air pollution caused by the use of poor quality coal and other pollutants.
We gather here to protect our rivers. I'm not from Belgrade. I come from Vojvodina, and I came here to raise awareness about ecology.
And we come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.